Chris gets arrested. In Get Out, we follow Chris, a young black man who goes to meet his girlfriend Rose's rich white family. And anyone who's seen the movie already knows what happens. The Armitage family kidnaps black people to transplant the brains of rich white people into their bodies. In the original ending that went to theaters, Chris manages to fight back, takes down the Armitages, and tries to survive the final threat, Rose, who pretends to be a victim until the very last second. Just as he's about to finish everything, police lights appear behind him. His heart stops, but they aren't police officers. It's Rod, his best friend, arriving in a TSA car. Immediate relief. They leave and Chris survives. But the alternate endings were much darker. In the first one, the police actually arrive. Chris gets arrested, covered in blood, with no evidence in his favor because the house burned down and destroyed everything. Months later, Rod visits him in prison. Chris accepts his fate, saying that at least he stopped the operation from continuing. It's a punch to the gut.
I'm glad. I stopped it. I stopped it.
That ending was actually filmed and exists as a Blu-ray extra. Here, Chris doesn't get a happy ending, but he still manages to destroy the Armitage family and stop their operation. Seeking revenge. In Knock Knock, we meet Evan, an architect, devoted husband, and family man, who ends up home alone on Father's Day weekend because his wife and kids went on a trip. It's raining when the doorbell rings. Two young women show up saying they're lost and need to use the phone. He lets them in. Terrible decision. The mood shifts quickly and what starts as flirting turns into provocation. Evan tries to keep his distance, but eventually gives into temptation. The next day, the nightmare begins. In the original ending, Evan ends up completely defeated. The two women bury him in the backyard, leaving only his head sticking out. Before leaving, they reveal that they're not underage and that they do this to a lot of men. Instead of killing him, they prefer to destroy him socially. They post an intimate video on his social media and even steal his dog. His family is on the way home and he's going to have to explain everything. It's a total disaster. In the alternate ending, there's an epilogue. Evan survives, eventually frees himself, and tracks the two women down using the GPS on the dog's collar. He discovers where they are and realizes they're already manipulating another man. The movie ends when he knocks on the door. And cut to black. The revenge is implied. The original ending is cruel, but the alternate one at least gives him a little dignity back. Cycle of violence. In 2005's Hostel, we meet Paxton, an American tourist traveling through Europe with his friends. What was supposed to be partying and fun turns into a nightmare when they discover the existence of elite hunting, a secret organization that pays to torture and kill people for pleasure. It's not supernatural, it's just rich people buying suffering, and that makes it even more disturbing. During the movie, Paxton's friends are captured and killed. He's also kidnapped and goes through torture sessions before barely managing to escape. In the original ending, Paxton reaches Vienna by train and recognizes the Dutch businessman who killed his friend Josh. He follows him into a public bathroom and gets his revenge right there. Then he catches another train and leaves. It's a revenge ending. Not exactly happy, but it gives a sense of justice. Now the alternate ending throws that away. In this version, Paxton sees the same businessman at the station, but he's with his young daughter. When the man enters the bathroom, the girl disappears. The camera reveals Paxton sitting on a train, holding the child while the father screams on the platform. And that's when things get really heavy. The violence turned Paxton into something similar to the people he hated. It's uncomfortable because it suggests that trauma doesn't end when you escape. It stays inside you. A life for a life. In Final Destination, Alex Browning has a premonition that his class's plane is going to explode. He panics, gets off the plane with a few classmates, and the plane actually explodes. But death doesn't like being cheated. One by one, the survivors start dying. At the end of the version that went to theaters, 3 people are left: Alex, Clear Rivers, and Carter. In a tense sequence, Alex realizes that Clear is next on death's list when a live electrical wire threatens to hit her near a car. He runs, grabs the cable, and saves her. After that, the movie jumps months ahead, showing the 3 of them in Paris. It looks like they won, but we know they didn't. A sign suddenly breaks loose and, well, Carter dies. But the alternate ending changed everything. In that version, Alex dies in the car explosion while saving Clear. The story then jumps forward in time and we see Clear giving birth to their child. Later, she and Carter visit Alex's grave with the baby in their arms. See how big that changes? The theory there was that Clear broke the cycle by creating a new life, as if death had lost control because something new entered the equation.
I'm sorry Alex never got to see him.
He sees him every day.
Carter would survive because the final target, Alex, had already been taken. That would have completely changed the concept of the franchise. Instead of being an inevitable and relentless force, death could actually be permanently cheated. That ending was filmed, but the producers decided to keep the cruel logic that became the series' trademark. The evil continues. In the 2013 remake of Evil Dead, a group of friends go to an isolated cabin to help Mia overcome her drug addiction, but they find the Necronomicon in the basement. They read the book, and that's it. Something ancient and evil awakens. For most of the movie, Mia is is possessed, fighting the entity and later trying to survive while her friends die one by one. In the ending that reached theaters, she's the only one left alive. After a chaotic battle under a rain of blood, Mia defeats the creature and walks out of the cabin in shock, but alive. The feeling is clear she won. She survived the addiction and the demon. There's even a post-credits scene with Ash Williams, connecting it to the original franchise.
Groovy.
But the alternate ending completely changes the tone. In this version, Mia reaches the road and collapses on the asphalt until a man arrives in a car and rescues her. The camera closes in on her face in the back seat. She suddenly opens her eyes in a strange way, almost empty, suggesting the evil may still be inside her. The director even considered an even more extreme ending for Mia, but Sam Raimi helped hold that idea back. And honestly, keeping Mia alive and apparently free made the movie stronger. The mask stays intact. In Orphan, the Coleman family adopts Esther, a polite, talented, and seemingly fragile little girl. But little by little, strange things start happening. Then comes the reveal. Esther isn't a child. She's a 33-year-old woman named Lena Clammer, who has a rare hormonal condition that prevents her from growing. In the ending that went to theaters, everything explodes. Lena has already killed a nun in the past, put the adopted son Daniel in danger, and murdered John, the father of the family. The last barrier is Kate, the mother. The two clash in a desperate scene near a frozen lake. Kate manages to kick her in the head, and Lena dies right there. It's exaggerated, dramatic, and very straightforward. But the evil is gone. However, the alternate ending is far more disturbing. In this version, the fight doesn't end at the lake. The story cuts to Lena in a bedroom, putting on makeup to once again look like the innocent 9-year-old girl. The police arrive at the house. She answers the door with that sweet, controlled demeanor. It's implied that Kate and little Max may have been killed. Lena keeps up the act and might be ready to deceive another family. Broken escape. In the descent, Sarah decides to travel with friends to explore caves in the mountains after losing her husband and daughter in an accident. What was supposed to be an adventure turns into a nightmare when they get trapped underground and realize they're not alone down there. Throughout the movie, they die one by one. The creatures that live in the cave attack without mercy, but the real terror is the constant feeling of suffocation. And there's also the revelation that Sarah's husband had an affair with Juno, the friend who organized the trip. So on top of the trauma, there's betrayal. In the ending that US audiences saw, Sarah manages to escape the cave. She drives down the road in shock, covered in blood, breathing like she just came back from hell. Suddenly she sees a vision of Juno sitting in the car seat and wakes up terrified. It's a final scare that makes one thing clear. She escaped physically, but her mind will never leave that place. But the original British ending is much crueler. After that car escape, the movie cuts back to inside the cave. We realize the escape was just her imagination. Sarah is still trapped in the darkness. She has a vision of her daughter holding a birthday cake, as if saying goodbye. In the background, we hear the creatures screaming as they get closer. The cave becomes a pure metaphor for her depression. She never really escaped her grief, not physically and not emotionally. The Box. In Seven, we follow two very different detectives. Somerset, experienced and tired of the world, and Mills, impulsive and full of energy. They're hunting a killer who murders based on the 7 deadly sins. In the ending that went to theaters, the one everyone knows, John Doe turns himself in and promises to show them where the last 2 bodies are. He takes Somerset and Mills to a remote field. A van arrives carrying a box. Somerset opens it and goes into shock. Inside is the head of Tracy, Mills's pregnant wife. Doe reveals the plan. He represents envy because he envied Mills's ordinary life. And to complete the cycle, Mills needs to become Wrath. Somerset tries to stop him, but Mills fires several shots. And in doing so, Doe wins even in death. The plan closes perfectly and Mills is taken away under arrest. A very good ending, right? But what if I told you they wanted to make it lighter? In Andrew Kevin Walker's original script, it was Somerset who killed Doe. That would have spared Mills from becoming Wrath. Brad Pitt fought to keep his character as the one who pulled the trigger because it made more sense with his personality. And he was right. Another suggestion from the studio was to replace Tracy's head with the couple's dog. Yes, they actually tried that. The idea was to soften the shock. David Fincher and the cast refused immediately. In fact, Brad Pitt had put it in his contract. The ending could not be changed. It was his condition for taking the role. There was also a proposal for an ending with a chase to save Tracy, almost like a standard action movie, and even a version where she survived and Doe was arrested in a traditional way. If that had happened, we might never have gotten what became one of the most impactful endings in cinema. To be born or not. In The Butterfly Effect, Evan discovers he can travel back in time by reading his own journals. Every time he changes a detail in the past, the present changes completely. The problem is that every attempt to fix something ends up creating an even bigger disaster, especially in the life of Kaylee, the love of his life. In the ending that played in theaters, Evan realizes that the real problem is him. Just his presence in Kaylee's life always leads to pain, abuse, or death. So he goes back to childhood, to the moment when they first meet at a party. Instead of becoming friends, he purposely scares her, telling her he hates her and that he'll hurt her family if she ever gets close close to him. Kaylee stays away and they grow up as complete strangers. Years later, as adults in New York, the two cross paths on the street. There's a brief moment of recognition, but they continue walking in opposite directions. He gives up love to make sure she can have a better life, but the director's ending is on another level of darkness. In that version, Evan realizes the problem isn't just his choices, it's that he exists at all. So he watches a video of his own birth and travels back in time to inside his mother's womb. There, he strangles himself with the umbilical cord, preventing his own birth.
Not again!
And what's implied is even darker. The miscarriages his mother had before would be siblings who made the same choice after discovering the power. The dead survivor. In Your Next, the premise is simple. A family reunion at an isolated house goes wrong when masked killers begin attacking. It seems like just another home invasion horror movie, but here there's one difference. Erin. She's not the typical terrified final girl because she grew up in a survivalist environment. While everyone else panics, she's thinking 2 steps ahead. The massacre at the Davison house is part of an internal plan. Crispin, her boyfriend, and his brother organized everything to eliminate their own family and split the inheritance. But no one expected Erin to fight back. The game flips and she starts taking down the invaders. In the original ending, Erin is the only survivor. A police officer arrives and, seeing the chaotic scene, impulsively shoots her in the shoulder. She falls, but she's still alive. But before any explanation can happen, a booby trap with an axe set on the door is triggered and hits the officer. Erin survived everything, but she's the only one left alive in a house full of bodies, including a police officer killed by her own trap. But there was an alternate version. In it, the officer's shot would be fatal. After defeating all the killers and her traitorous boyfriend, Erin would die by mistake. A cruel and ironic ending. This version only existed in early scripts and was never filmed, as they wanted a less bitter ending for Erin after everything she went through. Katie's possession. When Paranormal Activity exploded in 2007, a lot of the buzz came from the fact that the movie had already circulated online long before officially reaching theaters. And guess what? The ending wasn't the same. The story is simple and brilliant. Katie and Micah are an ordinary couple who begin recording strange events happening inside their house. In the studio ending, Katie stands for hours beside the bed, motionless, watching Micah sleep. In the middle of the night, she walks downstairs and a scream echoes. Micah runs after her. The camera doesn't show what happens downstairs, but seconds later, his body is thrown toward the camera. Katie reappears, possessed, and moves toward the camera. But in the original version, the ending was different. The beginning of the sequence is similar. Micah goes downstairs and dies off screen, but Katie comes back to the bedroom and simply sits on the floor, rocking back and forth in a trance for hours. After a long while, the police arrive. They find Katie holding a knife. She moves toward them, startling one of the officers, and in the panic, he shoots her. Katie dies right there. It was the studio that changed the ending after buying the movie. They wanted something more impactful and less procedural. There's also another version where she cut her own throat. And all 3 endings are available online. The Final Corner. In the Blair Witch Project, 3 students enter a forest in Maryland to film a documentary about the legend of the Blair Witch. It's a movie that became famous because everything feels too real. In the original ending, Heather and Mike find an abandoned house in the middle of nowhere. They go inside. Heather goes down to the basement calling for Mike. Suddenly, she finds Mike standing still, facing the wall in the corner. A direct reference to the story told earlier about the witch forcing children to stand facing the corner while another child was killed. Heather screams, the camera falls, the movie ends. What few people know is that alternate versions were filmed. In one of them, Mike appeared hanging from the basement ceiling, and there was another version where he was floating at the end. Those versions gave too many answers, and that's the point. The chosen ending is ambiguous. It shows nothing directly, only suggests. And that decision became a masterclass in psychological horror. The Gates of Hell. Freddy vs. Jason finally put 2 horror giants face to face. In the original ending that reached theaters, the battle ends at Crystal Lake. Laurie, the film's final girl, manages to decapitate Freddy. In the last scene, Jason emerges from the water holding Freddy's head. No one truly wins, but there was a much more ambitious plan. In the original script by Mark Swift and Damian Shannon, the fight would continue all the way into hell itself. As Freddy and Jason kept fighting, chains with hooks would suddenly appear to trap them. Then Pinhead from the Hellraiser franchise would show up. He would deliver the iconic line, "Gentlemen, what seems to be the problem?" It would have been the ultimate crossover of 80s horror. Why didn't it happen? A classic rights issue. The character belonged to another studio, and the negotiations never went through, so the idea was scrapped. And there's more. One ending was actually filmed showing Laurie and Will surviving. But during an intimate moment between them, Will's hand would transform into Freddy's bladed glove, suggesting possession. In the end, the movie chose the safer path, but it's easy to imagine the cultural chaos it would have caused if Pinhead had entered the conversation. Which of these alternate endings would you have actually wanted to see? Drop it in the comments, and there's another really cool video on screen right now. Go ahead and click it. I'll see you there.